Harper and Lopresti join us now for some table talk. All right, CeeLo, was this just one of those games that you forget about, or is there more cause for concern with the injuries finally catching up?
Well, I think it's both. I think you've got to flush it and forget about it because it was so one-sided. And look, this has not been a staple of the Knicks team so far this season. This is obviously the worst game they've played in the playoffs, maybe the worst game they've played all year. So from that standpoint, you kind of push it aside. They didn't have to extend themselves and exert as much energy as they would have in a tight game late. But this other stuff and the fact that the injuries are taking their toll, fatigue, I think is absolutely a factor that can't be discounted right now. I mean, we felt like at some point it was going to catch up to them. And as one guy after the next started to go down and the trickle down to the guys coming off the bench, Precious Achiuwa having to enter the starting lineup and them having some issues on the defensive end of the floor, Brunson not being 100%, Josh Hart not having a Josh Hart-like game. I mean, you can hope that they'll turn it around and feed off the crowd at MSG coming up on Tuesday night, but they're definitely, I think, logistically X's and O's wise and also physicality-wise, some questions that are very real right now with this team, Harp.
No doubt, CeeLo. It just felt like this was inevitable at some point. All these injuries would catch up with them. And it's not, I think physically they were worn down. I think mentally they're worn down as much as anything. And they just don't have enough firepower either. And I think that's caught up with them, too. They only have so many scoring options. And you got to, you know, Indiana's got some firepower. So to stay with them was going to be tough. And then it just seemed like the game got out of control early. You could almost see the air go out of the Knicks' sails there. And I think it'll be a different story in Madison Square Garden, but this is not going to be easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, the Pacers 22 fast break points and Knicks just 5. You got to imagine that has something to do with their
tired legs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Harp, so assuming the Knicks are still without OG Anunoby for Game 5, what adjustments do they need to make to bounce back?
I'm not sure there's many adjustments to make, Chelsea. I mean, we know it's Brunson. They got to find ways to get him the ball in the scoring position. But is that foot okay? It seems like every time he takes one wrong step, he seems to be still hurting with that thing. So the scoring's got to come from him. DiVincenzo's had the big game a couple of games ago. He's got to get hot and score from 3. But really, can you really expect Josh Hart to give you a whole lot offensively? If anything, maybe try and do a little more pick and roll offense with Hartenstein, because he handles the ball well. If you can get him the ball in the middle of the floor, sometimes in the lane, you got to get a little more out of your big guys. I think at some point, but it's going to come down to Brunson. He's got to have a huge game. That's what they live on right now.
That's what they've been relying on for most of the season, especially when guys have been down. So I know what you're saying about Hart, but we have seen him get involved a little bit more and shoot it better. It was in the Sixers series. I know it's a different series, different animal, different defense that you're facing, but when push comes to shove and you're looking for other scorers to step up, I think he's got to be one of the guys. He's a heart and soul guy on the team. I appreciated his accountability and what he said after this ugly Game 4 loss and basically saying he offered nothing. So I would think from a motivational standpoint, back at home in front of the Garden crowd, I think you'll get a better game out of him. DiVincenzo's got to shoot it more like he did in Game 3 as opposed to Game 4, which Harp mentioned. That was a golden opportunity they did not take advantage of when he shot it as well as he did. That game was there for the taking down the stretch. Obviously, Game 4 goes in a different direction, so they got to shoot it a whole lot better. I mean, you talk about adjustments, but if they're going to shoot it like they did in Game 4, it could be going back to Indiana with a chance for the Pacers to close it out.
Yeah, you can imagine that you'll get more than 2 points from Josh Hart. But quickly, CeeLo, where do you think their confidence is right now? You
know, I think the confidence is okay. I understand what Harp's saying about, you know, just mentally being worn down a little bit, but, I mean, this is a team that has
The Garden will change that. Being in the Garden will change that.
Right,
yeah,
sure.
That's a good point.
And I think just they've been gut-checked and battle-tested all year long. They don't quit. They don't give in. And I think that they're going to be able to summon some of that. And they may not win it, but I expect, obviously, a much better effort and a tighter game than we saw here in Game 4.
All right, this is a really interesting nugget. The last time the Knicks went up 2-0 in a series and then lost the next 2 games was the 1994 Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers, Harp. The Knicks did. They won it in 7.
Another 94 tie-in.
Absolutely. All right, guys, you'll be back in just a bit.